Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today to another Learn IT to Teach Avenue webinar with Margaret Stasiak. Today, she'll be talking to us about strategies and ideas for using Avenue with low CLB learners. We'd ask that if you have any questions during the session, you can put them in the chat and we'll take note of those. And then at the end, there'll be time for a discussion and you can ask questions then as well. So thank you very much for being here with us, Margaret. Another great webinar, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. And I'm just going to go into my slides. So let me start first with the, oops. Okay, I need to figure out everything. Okay, with the, okay, sorry, got it. With the land acknowledgement, before we get started, just wanted to say that New Language Solutions is based in Ottawa, Ontario. We acknowledge that our head office is on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Beyond Ottawa, we have staff working in locations across Canada. New Language Solutions is grateful to have the opportunity to work as a guest in communities and territories across the country. And we honor the stewardship of the many Indigenous peoples who have resided on these lands since time immemorial. We make our acknowledgement as a sign of respect for all Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, past and present. We accept the true impact of the past and the pain suffered by the generations of Indigenous peoples. As an agency that works to support the integration of newcomers into Canadian society and cultures, we resolve to support activities that are inclusive of Indigenous peoples. We will make our best efforts to address a history of injustice to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. We encourage our frontline staff and clients to discover whose traditional territories they live on and pause to reflect on the hospitality shown to us as guests in these territories. Thank you. And now I'm going to get started with my presentation. So thank you very much for attending this session. This session is about teaching low CLB level learners in the online environment, particularly using Avenue materials and Avenue's learning management system. And there are so many issues related to teaching low CLB levels that when I started planning this session, I really tried to rein everything in and just make it more focused and more relevant by reducing the number of topics that I could possibly cover in this session. So I am going in this session to focus on the setup of the course page, which is very important for low CLB level learners, especially those with literacy issues, literacy needs, and those who come from languages where other alphabets are used, since that is going to affect their reading skills. The next point that I'm going to discuss is activities and resources that you can possibly use with the low CLB level learners and that are available on Avenue. I will discuss how you can draw the activities from various units and how you can use them for the specific group of learners in your class and how you can adapt or adjust the content to meet the needs of those learners. And finally, I'm going to touch on some teaching strategies that you can employ with CLB 1 to 2, maybe literacy learners, keeping in mind that a lot of classes that are run on Avenue have different setups in terms of the online, synchronous online components, asynchronous online components, face-to-face sessions, and so on. So we have quite a variety when it comes to those setups, and I'll make sure that the strategies and ideas that I provide can be relevant to any setting that you may be working in. So before we get started with all the information that relates to all these 3 points, these three concepts, I wanted to start with learners' digital skills because I think this is one of the largest challenges that the instructor may actually need to face when getting started teaching learners at such low CLB levels. And in terms of learners' digital skills, it's really important to keep everything simple. At this level, learners will need to get to know those specific skills and routines that they need to perform on as needed basis. So they don't need to learn more than they actually need to know just to perform the specific tasks that they're working on. It is a good idea to keep it very simple and keep it related to only to the content that they're currently working on, rather than introducing them to the wide variety of different options that they might not have, that they might not be able to use or decide on. Learners at this level may find it very confusing when they read a web page that has many elements and they need to use different menus that need to be pulled down or they need to be expanded. So it might be very beneficial for them just to limit it to absolutely necessary steps that they need to know. Now, another point that you may need to consider is devices that are used by learners. Not every learner will have an opportunity to use a laptop or computer. They may not have access even to their own phone. So it is important to keep in mind that what you may see on the screen, for example, your course page, may not be exactly what the learner will be able to see. So again, keeping it simple and straightforward will help learners to use their devices and being able to and be able to figure out how to move between the slides, how to move from screen to screen on their own. It's very important at that level to demonstrate accessing various sections and navigating various sections on your course page and navigating different activities. And as I put in here, repeat, repeat, and repeat, and again, repeat again, because learners, especially those with literacy needs, may need this additional repetition and additional routine built in their learning that would help them learn those steps slowly and at their own pace. It's also important in your classroom to establish routines, just like you would have a designated routine for your face-to-face class, where the learners arrived at a certain time, and then maybe they spend some time chatting and making small talk, and then even sharing their personal stories. You may want to have that kind of routine in the online environment and then stick to that routine. You may also establish the routine in terms of, this is what we always start with. We always start with the brief recap. We always start, then we move on to the new material, and then we do something else. So the learner feels that the environment in which they are learning is familiar and they feel comfortable and they feel, and then they can grow their skills. Okay, now to say more about learners' digital skills is really important when you, in your lessons that you conduct either online or in a face-to-face environment, and very often you will start with demonstrations, demonstrating how to access various sections and activities. It is very important to engage learners in that process. So sometimes, even though you may feel tempted just to do it on your own because it just takes it takes a shorter time to accomplish that task, it might be beneficial for the learners actually to answer the questions about steps, about the commands, about things that they do next. It is quite practical to do it in the classroom where you have access to a smart board, because this way you can do it in a very natural way, and the learner will see the command executed right away. But if you don't have access to that, you can still ask learners to guide you and to perform those steps, so you can actually reinforce those simple routines that are done, routine tasks that are done commonly and every day in every session. Also use activities to practice those digital skills. So if you do activities on giving instructions or giving directions, you can include activities that reflect the steps involved in accessing web pages, accessing course page, accessing activities, and so on. Have learners collaborate in pairs and give instructions to one another so they can also have some kind of a language practice as part of that task included. And finally, always review and demonstrate access to and navigation of the assessment tasks. It's really important because very often learners will have to perform assessment tasks on their own. And regardless how many of them they have already done, it is still important to take away a bit of that anxiety that is associated with the assessment. And it's important to go through the steps involved in completing the task, including submission. If there is recording or typing included, you will also need to demonstrate that, not necessarily on the same day, but also look at it on the day before and maybe on the day of the assessment so the learners feel comfortable in performing that task. Now, that's to address the digital skills. And as you go through the course and the time passes, you will notice that learners actually build those digital skills and are able to perform many tasks on their own without constant supervision, support, and scaffolding. Now, another element that is really important and helps learner in their learning and creating the comfortable and supportive learning environment is the course page and the way it is set up by you. So course pages can vary in their looks, and they can, with all the information that we want to retain for the learner and make accessible for the learner at any time, they may become quite cluttered and then make it very difficult for the learner to find the information and to find the activity that they need to focus on. And it is particularly important for learners coming from the language, coming with a language with a different alphabet, and learners with literacy needs. Many learners at low CLB levels still practice reading in a linear way. So looking at a page that has very many elements is quite challenging and makes the whole task of locating what they need to do and understanding what is involved in that task quite difficult. So I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind, is to keep the course page very simple and clutter-free and display only necessary items or the items that are used regularly. You may need to teach learners to close their navigation drawer, because when you look at your course page, the navigation drawer is the whole menu that is on the left-hand side on your course page. I'm going to go to my course page in a moment and just show you what I'm talking about. So that it may not be necessary for the learner to access the items that are on in that navigation drawer. It's also important for you to show how to use the full screen view in H5P activities. Even when you display those H5P activities on your screen, screen that you share with the learners with a web conference, or if you use a smartboard or a projector, it is still a good idea to use a full screen view, because it just makes everything so much simpler and clearer for the learner. Also, when you list items on your course page, consider the number and the size of images that are part of your course page. You may want to develop your own set of images that will just signal very particular tasks or particular elements of the course, or maybe the unit. For example, if you start the new unit, usually the units come with some kind of information, a label that signals the content of the unit. But when the unit is finished, you may want to have a message for the learners. This is the end. Congratulations on completion of that unit. And also, units, as you have noticed, when they come from the course builder, they may look quite different. Some of them have very large labels with big illustrations and a lot of text in labels, and some of them have very little of that additional information. So you may want to adjust that appearance if you have skills to do that, and if you have editing rights, because doing so will require you to have the stage 2 of the training, of the Avenue training, completed. But it's worthwhile because it makes everything looks better, simpler, and easier for the learner to follow. And when keeping your course page, in order to keep your course page clean looking, consider using collapsible units. So this is the setup that you receive automatically when your course is, when you receive your course. All units that are imported from the course builder are collapsible. You can also have a different kind of unit, which is just one unit and everything else is not visible. So you can display only one unit at a time. And if your learners do not access the course page too often on their own, but it is you who really presents all the activities for them, it might be something that you may want to consider. And because of these units look so different, it is a good idea to keep them consistent. Always collapse those that you don't use, so it is a cleaner look, and it looks like it's all organized. Also consider, for very low CLB learners, displaying the current unit that they're working on at the very top of your page. So very often learners use telephones as their devices, and that involves a lot of scrolling. The same is with using laptops, and not many, very often learners who are older or have some vision issues, they might find it very difficult to scroll up and down and then find the particular unit. So it might be beneficial for them to always to know that anything that they're working on at that particular moment is at the very top. Hide content that you do not use, as I said before, and always test what the students can view. You can do it simply by going to your home page and switching the role that you're in right now. And instead of having your normal role, you switch to the student role, and you can see exactly what the learner will experience on your course page. And finally, I just wanted to address one more thing. In order to build some digital skills while working with your course page, consider using video messages for your learners. And you can do this through you can do it in announcements, you can do it in various tutorials and demonstrations. I'm going to go to my course page in a moment. I think I'll need to go here. No, I need to go to my dashboard. I'm sorry about that. Nope, it's not in here, sorry. This one. This is my test course. I just wanted to show you. So typically when you use your course page and you bring in different items to it and locate them on that space, you may have your navigation drawer open in here. And then when you see how much of that precious space is taken by the navigation drawer and then blocks, that's another thing that takes space. So for the learner, this might be a little bit of information overload to see all of these things displayed. Consider which of these you actually use and decide which of them you will need and which of them you don't want to have. I like to have the announcements and the box where I can put different websites or web pages that I can refer learners to. For example, if there's a Quizlet activity that I want them to complete, or if I want them to refer to the page where they can translate the text, I would just put it in here. You could also embed those places on your course page, and so it's up to you. It doesn't matter because their activity completion is not going to be tracked anyway, because if they're embedded, they're not part of Avenue. But still, it might be easier for the learner at the low CLB to have it embedded on their page. But I wanted to show you what you can do with the announcements, because announcements is something, these are the tools that you use regularly to announce a new topic, to announce a new lesson, to assign an activity to complete, to remind what needs to be submitted, or remind about artifacts that need to be placed in the ePortfolio. So typically we would just sit down and write quickly the text of our announcement. But what you can also do is actually, for this low CLB learners, is just record the video of yourself. So what I would typically do, I would just write a very simple script of my message. I would type it in here, and I would also video record myself. And it's a very simple tool, like with all modal tools, you can see it's just 3 buttons: record, play, and upload. And I would just do that. And then you insert and your video appears in your announcement in here. So it's a very convenient tool, because it ensures that learners with literacy needs do not struggle getting the message from you. They can very often compensate with watching the video and understanding the message that is in there. And also it builds on additional skills that learners may require. It's not always reading, but it's also using the video. So, and then you would just post it here. So I'm just going to cancel. But this is one of the very good tools that you could use that learners actually appreciate, especially those at low levels. The same you can do with tutorials and demonstrations. So if you if you have new learners in your class, learners that have just joined the program, or learners that have difficulty following the steps, what you can do, very often I know many instructors record their web sessions. So what you can do, you can just extract that piece in which you demonstrated how to do something, save it as a separate file, and post it again, embed it on your course page, or post it in one of the blocks so learners can access it at any time. You can also include it in your announcements so learners can easily get it right away. And the same with demonstrations on how to access a different web page, or how to submit something, or how to complete an activity that you have assigned. Now, that pretty much covers the topic of setting up your course page. So I think the most important takeaway message is just to keep it simple, clean, and consistent, to make it easier for the learners. Now, another point that is really important that I wanted to talk about is using ready-made units in course builders. So Course Builder in Avenue has quite a big collection of ready-made units, and they are tagged with CLB levels and also pre-CLB and ESL literacy tags. They may not be exactly specifically targeting the pre-CLB or ESL literacy. You will notice that it's actually the same grouping for both pre-CLB and ESL literacy, which is not necessarily true, but I mean, we just tried to capture as wide an audience as possible for those units. And I think the instructor who looks at the content will see how they can adapt and use these particular units. Most units are also tagged for more than one level. So you can see CLB 1 and CLB 2 levels very often together. Now, when you search the course builder, I'm just going to go to the course builder right now and just show you. When you search the course builder for the units for your level, it is important that you look not only at your CLB level, but also beyond your level. So you can actually see the units that are higher or lower and can be adapted or changed slightly to use in class or individually in an asynchronous component by learners. So as you all know, we have themes and categories at the bottom. We have here different CLB designations, CLB2, and let's say if I want to look at the CLB2 units, you see I have 7 pages of those. But if I look at ESL literacy, I have only 2. So the number of units is not as big for all those possible levels. Let me just go back in here to my presentation. I'm doing something wrong with switching to screens, but it's okay. So it's really important that when you select your units for your course is that you preview and preview the units and take your time doing that, because units are really very, very rich in the content that very often gets completed really fast and is not necessarily used to its full potential. Now, you can use the units which are already in the course builder as is, which means you don't need to make any changes, you don't need to adapt them, you can just go through the activities and build the skills and provide practice, build on those units with your learners. And if this is something that you would like to do, or this is something that you can do because you have just completed stage 1 training or just a boot camp for Ontario ESL instructors, that's fine, because it gives you plenty to teach with. So you can order these, and you can request these units directly into your course. And then when you look at your course, on your course page, at those units on your course page, select the activities that you want to use. You don't need to use everything in a unit. You can select the ones that you like, or select the ones that really meet the needs of your learners. And the ones that you're not going to use, you can easily remove. If you have editing rights, you have completed stage 2 of the Avenue training, you can actually move those, use the sharing card and move those activities to your sandbox and keep them there if this is something that you would like to do. And if you have these editing rights, you have completed the stage 2 training, you can also request a unit for your sandbox and look at it very carefully, see how you can adapt or modify the activities. Do it in your sandbox, and once you're ready and once you're happy with what your activity looks like, you can then move that particular activity onto your course page. Now, what kind of possible adaptations or modifications you could make? Very often for low CLB levels, you will notice that the activities may be too long, or maybe you want to extract just the listening conversation and the comprehension questions, and not focus on the other follow-up exercises that are included in the same H5P. So having a sandbox and doing it in your sandbox will make it so much easier, faster, and also will allow you to split those H5P activities, make them your own, maybe add a slide with the video or with pronunciation practice, maybe add some kind of a typing activity, anything that would complement the existing activity. Okay, so here I just wanted to show you examples of e-activities and the units that I picked for CLB 1-2 that I thought could illustrate that process of modifying and adapting the content. The first one that I picked is talk about your home and address. This is the unit that appears in the home and community theme. And let me just go to CLB 1. This is the unit that is appropriate for both CLB 1 and 2, but I just clicked 1. So as you can see here, when I go to home and community, I have quite a few units available, and I've decided to focus on that particular unit, talk about your home and address, because it includes something that I would like to practice with the learners in my class, which is giving the address, saying the address, reading the address, writing the address, using capital letters in addresses, also practicing numbers, writing numbers, and this can be connected to completing forms. So I just looked at that unit and I noticed it has many other activities that I may not necessarily need and will not necessarily want to do at this time with my learners. So what I can do, I can just look at the unit guide and transcripts and sample handouts and see what is in those documents for me and keep them hidden on my course page. I would delete everything else that I'm not going to use with my learners. And so I will delete before you begin and vocabulary and describe your home where you live, because that's not something that I am going to work on. I will focus just this one on what is the address that allows me to work on the vocabulary and the skills, mostly listening and speaking. And then I will look at the writing practice that involves writing capital letters, and then use the forum activity and the writing practice task, because this is what is relevant to these activities that I used from here. So if I wanted to use this unit, I would request the whole unit. I could put it in my sandbox and then just from sandbox import my two H5 piece here, a forum and an assessment task. Or what you can do, you can request that unit for your course page, then delete everything else, because there's really no point in keeping everything else for the learner to see and to come across every time they go to this activity. And just keep these and have them work on these activities and build your other activities around that. Okay, so I'm going to close this. Let me just go back here. Another unit that, oh, I wanted to say also that if when you have that set of activities on address, providing an address, you could also supplement it with e-activities on numbers. So when you go to the course builder and you actually look at the literacy and numeracy skills, you will see that there are units dedicated only to numbers. There is one unit here. There's another unit available here on the next. Oh, it's not here, but I know it is somewhere here. Maybe it's pre-CLB, I'm sorry. It also has, it's called Numbers 2. I think I've lost it somewhere here. It will be here. This is one numbers, and there's numbers 2. So these 2 units, you can use these 2 units and again, request them for your course or for your sandbox, extract from them what you need, delete everything else that you don't need, or hide if you are planning on using it later. So this is what you can do, combine the units and make sure that altogether you get this meaningful set of activities that will help learners practice their specific skills. Now, another example that I wanted to show you is the topic of reading a pay stub. So I thought I would teach that topic with learners at CLB 2. I reviewed the work and pay unit that already exists in the listing. Let me just find that. CLB 2 and CLB 1, just in case. So this unit is right here, work and pay. I preview the unit and I see it's pretty comprehensive. It has a lot of activities. Oops, I'm just going to move it up here. A lot of activities that I'm going to use with the learners. It's all around reading a pay stub, practicing vocabulary, practicing some numeracy skills involving making calculations. And then again, I can think, oh, I may want to complement it, to supplement it with numbers, activities around numbers, expressing dollar amounts. So that would be around Canadian money. And also, I have learners in my class that have already done the activities that are in that unit. Is there anything else that I could use with them? So what I will do, I'll just go to a different unit that is working in Canada. And I go in here, once I preview it and see what it includes, I noticed, and in topic 3, again, it's understanding a pay stub. So, and this is quite short. It has a great video about reading a pay stub. So what I do, I just combine these 2 units and use the H5P activities, the videos, and surveys, as well as the assessment from both units, just so I have variety and supplementary activities that may be used by different learners or different groups of learners. So this is just to give you a sense, but also I wanted to show this unit because you can see how different its organization is. So some units are built around one topic. Some units include several topics. This one includes 3 topics. And as you can see, the setup, the visual setup on the page is quite different too. There are large images that signal the content of the topic. And then there's a list of goals, learning goals, and then some support materials, such as, for example, at the beginning of this particular unit, there is a brief tutorial on how to record and answer video. And then there's a space for announcements. So if this is something that you're not going to use with your learners regularly, you can delete that. You don't really need this big part that is going to take a lot of space on your course page, and it will make it easier for the learners to actually follow the activities. You can reduce the size of the images. You can even delete if you don't want them. Just make sure that the learners will be able to see the division into topics if this is something that you would like to do. But my point is that you have a lot of flexibility with how you display the activities, how you organize them, how you order them on a page, and how you visually display the information that is important that the learner will need to work on it. Let's go back to our slides. So in here, as I said, I combined the 2 units on work and pay, and you get these activities can be supplemented with units on Canadian money, numbers, as well as calendar that includes activities providing practice in using days of the week, names of months, also expressing periods of time with days and hours and so on. And also, most units include are accompanied by paper-based materials. So many units include handouts that can be used in class, which you can also use in a web conference by sharing your screen, displaying the PDF file and sharing the screen. You can also use it for learners when they work in groups on in-person, or use them in a face-to-face instruction. Okay. Now, ready-to-use activities, and they are mostly H5Ps and some Moodle activities. Also, other tools were used for development, but very rarely. They are all designed as interactive. So it makes a lot of sense for learners not only complete them in class with your support and with your scaffolding, but also on their own. And it is important that you alert them to the score that they need to obtain when completing the activities. These activities can be completed many times. If you want to limit the number of completions, you can change the settings for the activities. But typically, the score for H5P activities is set at 70%, because this is something that the learner will need to achieve in their assessments. So this way they can get ready for the completion at a certain level, and also learning at the same time and maintaining and making sure that they're not just rushing through the slides in order to get to the last slide, but they're actually gaining something from that experience. Very often, if you complete activities in class, it is very important for learners to know how they can complete the activity, but I mean, not just from the technical point of view by clicking the buttons and doing things, but also demonstrating learners how they can learn and how they can benefit most from any given activity. So for example, if the learner listens to reads the slide with the conversation and listens to the conversation, what she can do is tell the learners to listen to it more than once. Tell them, when you listen to the conversation for the first time, try to understand who is talking, what they're talking about, how long their conversation is, and is there the end result to that conversation. Then you can tell them, listen again, and this time pay attention to the questions, read the question, and then listen and try to answer that question. And finally, you can ask them to listen for the third time and listen for specific words. How many verbs have you heard in that conversation? Or how many specific expressions they have noticed? Or I don't know, if the conversation is about the pay stub, how many dollar amounts they heard in any given clip. So this way, learners learn to listen for different things and listen how they can use various listening strategies when listening to an audio or video. Okay. Now, the last part of my presentation is going to be about actual teaching and using various strategies, maybe ideas on how learners can how learners can work with the e-activities and what you can do to support that process and their learning. And I just listed a few examples of different types of modalities that I know different classes are running. So the first one is face-to-face instruction. You may use Avenue content in a face-to-face instruction. What you can do is just demonstrate the material, the activities, and have learners complete them with you, even orally or even by providing you with input, so you can actually perform the activity using their guidance. You can also have learners come up to the screen, to the smartboard, and tap and click and write and do things with the activity as they're supposed to do. You can also just show the activities and show the resources that are available there. And for that, you may not even need to have learners signed up on Avenue. You can just use your sandbox just to demonstrate something, just to show it as a visual support to your lesson. Another typical setup is a hybrid instruction. So hybrid instruction is when there is a combination of online component and face-to-face component. In this setting, very often there's a designated time that instructor spends with the learners in class, and then asynchronous component is the component where learners are assigned the online activities that they need to complete independently in preparation for the next face-to-face session. Then there is flex instruction. This is something that is very often done, especially in smaller organizations or in smaller communities, where we have really learners in different kinds of settings. Some of them may be in class, but some of them may not be able to access that class, so they access the course remotely. So the instructor is actually teaching online with some of the learners present and using their own devices, and the other learners using their devices from their homes. So this is, again, another challenge for the instructor to manage it. But if you think about it, it's really using the combination of the hybrid and fully online instruction. It is quite challenging for the instructor and for those learners who are in class, because in a way, there's no advantage for them to be in class. But at the same time, the instructor can spend some time with them separately when other learners are working on their own. remotely. And finally, a fully online setting where learners do not attend class in person, but they spend time online only, and they have synchronous web conferencing sessions. And the time dedicated to those web conferencing sessions can vary from organization to organization, CLB level, and so on. So there are classes where all their time is spent within web conference, or there are classes where a small portion is dedicated to the independent learning, and then the remainder of the time is synchronous. So my question for you now would be, what modality your course do you teach your course in, and whether it is fully online or in person, or are you teaching a hybrid course? How do you do that? Oh, there's a question about assessment, which I think does not belong here, but it's okay.
Oops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Just ignore number 2, everyone. Just ignore number 2. I would edit that
Yeah.
now, but it'll end the poll. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, it happens. Yeah, so I can see that there are some classes that are happening fully online at that level, and that might be a big challenge for the instructor and for the learner. But most of them are a hybrid, and again, a big portion of in-person with technology, which is a good actually introduction for learners. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that's very informative. Yeah. So I can see that yeah, that organizations take advantage of having the access to online and offering hybrid learning, which is actually very beneficial for learners. Okay, I'm just going to close that poll, and yep, and I'll move on to my next, oops, slide. So I'm going to start my discussion with using online content in a face-to-face class, because a lot of the topics that I'm going to touch on will actually be relevant to any setting. As I mentioned before, if you teach in a face-to-face setting, you really have the benefit of two worlds, because you can use the online content and use it as yet another resource, and then at the same time you can provide the support and scaffolding to learners while they need it. And this is really very important. So in a class like that, you could probably display the content using the projector, or ideally, if you could have a smart board, and then guide learners through the specific e-activities that you would like them to complete. It's very important that you demonstrate over and over and over again how to complete those activities, and how to use them, how to check their score, how to go back, how to start it again. You can do it with a smart board if you have that luxury of having a smart board, or just simply elicit steps from learners and just perform those tasks and those steps. So if in case of using a ready-made, ready-to-use activities, you can use them as they were designed to be used. Having learners in the classroom with you gives you an opportunity to provide scaffolding and support. So ideally, learners would be working on their own devices. And when I say own, like, that means that each learner has their device. And it can be provided by the organization you teach for, or their own device that they can bring to class. But at the same time, you are able to walk around the room, support, provide feedback. Learners can also collaborate, so they can work with another learner and provide, write something together, prepare a brief response for the form together, and so on. At the same time, you can use this online content as any other resource, such as a print resource, a video, or any other website. So that means that you can build on it. You can complement it with you can supplement it with your own ideas, with follow-up activities. You can simply take a listening material from the H5P activity, look at it very closely, find the grammar point that is in there, and build a new lesson on it, because it will give you these opportunities to do that, and you can easily do it in the classroom. With CLB literacy and CLB 1-2 learners, you can use selected slides just for practice of their reading skills, writing and copying, spelling skills. And you can use the slides, having it displayed via the projector or smartboard, and then having them copying things, writing things, maybe practice spelling, maybe practice vocabulary items using the images that are included in the online units. You can also use the selected slides to practice copying and writing. So the learners can copy or write not only on their laptops or their phones, but they can also write in their notebooks, which is an added benefit for them. Having learners in class will also allow you to use the total physical response technique to accompany learning, so learners can perform various actions. They can learn vocabulary with TPR. They can practice various sentences doing that, and also provides additional interest to learners who learn in different ways. It's important for the instructor to encourage the use of digital assists that are available now on various devices that can help learners understand, speak, and write. So in terms of these digital assists, I mean here speech to text, for example, app, or having a translator that they can have on their phone. It just makes it so much easier for the learner, especially at this very low level, to be able to understand the instructions, to be able to use what is on the screen in order to perform the tasks that they're required to do. So it's also important that you include teaching how to use these digital assists in your class. You may need to dedicate a lesson to that, and together with the lesson on how to learn efficiently, so learners know how to not just spend the time on going through the slides, but actually benefiting from that. What is really very important when doing things in the classroom is use a very slow pace and give ample time for learners to complete activities. And being with them in the classroom, teach them how to learn. So as I mentioned before, it is important for the learner to know how many times to listen to something and what to pay attention to, when copying, what to pay attention to, when practicing pronunciation again. So there are different learning strategies and techniques that you may attach to the specific types of activities online and teach them together with those activities. Now, when using online content remotely, you will have many more challenges comparing to what the instructor using them in a face-to-face situation would have. So I wanted to say that in an online setting, it is important to use something that I called personally just a sandwich model, which means really it's not just having synchronous and asynchronous component, but it's about introducing what is available online and demonstrating it first prior to the learner working on those activities, then dedicating a specific period of time to independent learning. This is where the learners would complete the assigned asynchronous activities in their own time. And for those, I would always start with selecting manageable activities, something that can be completed in a short time. It's not going to tire the learner and make them feel frustrated because they were not able to complete it. So usually start with one activity that is quite short And then when the learners get a habit of completing activities and doing them to their full potential, then add on to that set. And I would always select the activities that do not require additional support and scaffolding. So something that they can do on their own, something that is quite repetitive, something where they don't need to use additional learning strategies that they may not have. And then once learners complete those activities, again, go back to in-class debrief and building on independent learning. So again, this is the component where you spend time together with the learners, debrief the content that they worked on. So take it up, just connect, make that connection between what they did online and what they're going to work on in the classroom. And then expand on the content that they were working on and introduce asynchronous activities gradually. So segue learners into learning independently. For many learners at low levels, CLB 1 and 2, as well as literacy learners, working independently and completing activities independently can be challenging. And this is something that they need to learn in addition to the language skills that they acquire. In a synchronous session, and it can be face-to-face, but also web conferencing, because it's very similar. It lacks that personal connection and personal presence, but it is the session where the learners can actually interact with one another as a class, but also with you as the instructor. So use those synchronous sessions for example, for teaching vocabulary or grammar that are embedded in the activities that the learner will complete independently, or maybe they have completed it, but it was not fleshed out in that e-activity. If the unit includes forum activities, use these forum activities for oral discussions and sharing, and then follow up with those forum activities being completed as a writing practice independently by learners. Provide additional spelling, copying, writing practice. Draw on grammar items that were included in the texts, reading texts, listening texts, and then complement that, supplement that with your own grammar lessons. And within that web conferencing, you may need to use additional resources that you may need to develop, or go to different web pages just to use the materials that are provided in there. And when debriefing with learners in class, either online or in person, you may ask learners whether they have completed the activities. Of course, you can check the activity completion using the Avenue tool, but I think for learners to actually bring a photo of a completed activity, which they can take with their phone and just show it, and the score that they can show to you too, maybe a bit more rewarding than just knowing that the teacher's checking their score somewhere else. You can also ask review questions or follow-up questions that relate to the material that was covered in the e-activities. You can add community connection tasks that relate to the tasks or e-activities that were included in the unit. For example, if you just completed a unit on reading a pay stub, tell the learners, ask somebody you know about their pay stub. How often do they get a pay stub? Okay, and then bring that information into the class. So this is something that connects that to real life. As a class, you can make a list of new vocabulary learned, make it a vocabulary bank and refer to it and build on it in the following lessons. You can use transcripts. Most units include transcripts of listening material included in the unit. You can use those transcripts in different ways for developing additional activities. For example, you can white out some words and have learners listen for specific words. You can white out, if it is a conversation, you can delete the part spoken by one person and have learners come up with sentences for turns made by that person, and so on. So you can use different ideas for expanding on those activities. So just to recap, what I have said in today's presentation will be basically when you start designing your course for low CLB learners, set up your course page to meet learners' needs and adjust the way your page looks to the learner's specific needs, be it literacy or low CLB level. Provide ongoing practice in digital skills together with practicing the language. Select content and adapt it as needed. Combine units, hide items that you don't need or don't use, supplement with content from other units, even if it's only one activity. Demonstrate, have learners practice, and debrief. So use these 3 steps. First, always start with them. It's extremely challenging for the learners to complete the activity if they don't know what to do with it. So at this level, it's still important to demonstrate, then have learners work on the activity and then debrief. Provide ongoing support if possible, and establish routines. It's really important at this level, and gradually introduce learners to independent asynchronous learning, where they can complete activities on their own and take charge of their learning process. So that's it for my presentation. And now I'll just hand it over to you. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for that, Margaret. An excellent session. There aren't really any
you.
questions in the chat. It's a lot of sort of supportive comments and positive comments.
Mhm.
If anyone has a question now and you'd like to put it in the chat or unmute yourself and use your microphone, this would be a good time for that. You've stunned them into silence.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's informative. It's great to be around other people. You get more ideas, and
Mhm.
I love. Thank you so much for a great session.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. And I see that you added Screencast-O-Matic. So that's a
No,
tool that's
I
an
don't use
excellent.
it.
Oh, you don't use it?
I
Mhm.
use I got Snagit because I went live
Mhm.
once and I asked Paul and use it. So it's been amazing because using those arrows and like it's incredible.
That's right.
I love it.
Yeah.
And being in
Yeah.
class is a different ball game. It's happiness galore.
That
Thank you.
is true. Yeah. Yeah.
And the
I
uptake is increased dramatically. Like when we were fully
Mhm.
online at the beginning of pandemic, it was almost a disaster. You could say that.
Mhm.
Even though I
Yeah.
was using EduLink with them, it was still, it wasn't, it was really, it was really hard. I don't even want to go back there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's especially challenging with low levels. It's just
Yeah.
very, very challenging. So
And I've had
yeah.
low
Mhm.
levels now for a while and nobody wants to switch because of the PBLA.
Mhm.
I don't either because I've built so much material that I don't want
Yeah.
to change either. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And I wanted to say that it's really, I think it's really important if you develop your own materials, if you collect additional activities, put them in your sandbox rather than in your regular course, live course, because every time you edit anything in your live course, it just creates issues for the learners who are currently completing activities, or maybe, it's just becomes very slow, the page is not responsive. So it may cause more challenges for learners. They will not understand what's happening. So always use your sandboxes just to practice different things, see what you can do with them and how you can do things. Even if you want to set up your course page in a specific way, just practice that in the sandbox so you see what works best, and then transfer that knowledge into your regular live course.
I totally agree,
Okay.
but I made a huge mistake yesterday because I imported something from another course and all the blocks came with it. I forgot to uncheck that. And now I've had a disaster to fix.
Yeah, yeah. So that may create actually more work, right? So just
Yeah, basically.
yeah. But we all learn through mistakes, so it's fine.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Live and learn.
Okay.
Anyway, Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you. so
you.
much. It's amazing.
Elaine,
Thank you
did you
very
have a
much,
question?
everybody.
Oh, just a moment. I
Yes,
think Elaine has a question. Thank you.
if you don't mind, Margaret, I just wanted to
Mhm.
tap into your expertise for a second here. In my class, we're dealing with the discontinuation of the language companion in ESL
Mhm.
classes. And so I wondered if you could make a few suggestions in terms of how to deal with the loss of the Binders About Me section for
Mhm.
lower level learners. And I thought perhaps maybe in the course builder, there might be a module or something to so that we can go through the needs assessments and all those things so that I can help them complete those PBLA
Mhm.
requirements online. I'm just at a loss. And so I thought I would,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
I'd ask you.
That's a great question, Elena, and I saw that question because you put it in the registration form, and
Thank you.
I already talked to Jim about it because I thought, yes, this is so important. It's actually not the first, you're not the first person who asks about it, and I think we will be coming up with something, at least kind of a tool set for, because there are already many print-based tools, so we
Yes.
don't want to discard everything. And not everything can be translated into the Moodle environment because a lot of Moodle tools require a score, and this is not where the score is required.
Right.
So we're just going to start working on that and definitely come up with the set of tools that would be, based on something that already exists. So it's not creating things from scratch, but also we'll provide tips on how to create your own because I know many instructors have their own tools that they would like to use. But for now, I think it will involve just uploading
Okay, I was going to ask you that. So just
PDFs.
scan and
This is,
upload.
yeah, I think at
Okay.
this point that's all there that can be done.
I
You
really
can
Yeah.
create
I
H5P.
really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thanks so
Mhm.
much for that. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
sorry just to
Thank
create
you.
more work.
No, you just sort of
Uh,
confirmed what I had sort of a solution in the back of my head, but I wasn't really sure. So I thought
Yeah.
I'd ask. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
just to check, I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but there are two e-units, PBLA resources, stage 1, stage 2, that include
Mhm.
assignments and activities for About Me and the needs assessment and those things. Is that something different than what you're talking about?
So my understanding, yes, you're correct. There are orientation modules. I think that's correct, that explain the language companion,
Mhm.
explain.
Oh, no. There's one that's called PBLA resources, which is actually ready-made activities for About Me, needs assessment, CLB, can-do statements, that kind of thing.
So I'm
Mhm.
using that in the stage
Okay.
2, like in level
Mhm.
5, 6, 7. I have used that. You're absolutely correct. I have used that. I just wondered, maybe I was at a loss. I hadn't found the the corresponding activities perhaps for lower levels.
They do have
Okay.
them because I've used them.
You have.
Yeah.
So
Could you
it
tell
is
me where
ready
they are?
available.
Could
Yeah,
you
and
tell me?
it's in the course builder, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you
I'm
look
just
up
Mhm.
CLB
going to the
1 and 2, it's in there because I've just used the unit on how to. I think it was put out by the TCDSB. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
yes.
So it does exist, and I used the unit on how to sort out the tabs and the binders with my students, and we went through it in class. It took approximately 2 weeks. Again, level 1 and 2, you need lots of time and figuring out how to
Yeah.
put those tabs because those binders do not come with the tabs. They're all at the back. It was really good. They really liked it. So
So
I'm
Elizabeth,
planning to use more of it.
yeah, my
And I
apologies.
adapted some H5Ps that I made of my own to it. So
Mhm. Mhm. I
Margaret,
think, mhm.
would it be okay to share my screen? I've just found them in the course builder.
Yes, go ahead. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Share screen. I'll go to, oh, not my email. Whoops. Okay, course builder here. So what
Yeah.
I clicked on was orientation to PBLA and
Mhm.
Avenue, and there's the orientation modules, but these ones, PBLA resources, CLB 1 to 2.
Mhm.
Oh,
If we
Mhm.
preview the E unit there, it's got the I want to learn, my
oh,
autobiography,
that's
can-do
great.
statements, goal setting,
Yeah.
and reflections there. So there is one for both stage 2 and
Mhm.
Thank you
Mhm.
stage
very
1
much.
learners. Hopefully
and
that's
I think
useful.
what
Thank you
would be
so much, Paul.
amazing, sorry to interrupt,
Mhm.
Paul, it would be if those databases were able to go to the binders. Because the only solution I can find that goes to
Mhm.
the binders is the quiz.
Um, Yeah, the assignment can work for that as well.
The assignment can work too.
Sure.
And
I think
database,
for, yeah,
a bit trickier. You can screenshot, but yeah.
For low
It's a lot.
level, for low level learners, I think the quiz would be better because you can insert a prompt, and the prompt can be the explanation of what to do. You can insert audio and images, whereas, but then the quiz, it would need to be an open-ended question. It would be an essay question for about me, right? Text.
Mhm.
But as I said, you know, many of the Moodle tools are just not ideal for that reason. It's just, yeah, they're not perfect tools.
Very much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah.
it. Thank you. Thanks to both of you.
It would be nice if Moodle could, with the quiz, do something like a database type of or a survey type of question that doesn't have any points tied to
That
it. That
doesn't have the
would be
points tied to
ideal.
it. Yeah. Yeah, but as I said, it's already on our to-do list. So we're just going to take a look and see what is possible. And you know, if no tools are developed, then we'll just suggest, you know, what to do about it and how to do that, and maybe have a webinar about it. But yeah.
Suggest it to the Moodle community, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just another thing to think about. Yeah. But thank you for that question, Elaine. It's really valid, and it's a great question. Yeah.
Thanks to both of you. You saved me a lot of time. Thank you.
Right on,
Thanks.
right on. Thank you, Margaret. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So this has been a great session. Thank you very much.
Thanks so
It has
much,
been-
Paul, for helping me.
It has been recorded to everyone, so we can watch for this on YouTube in the next few days. And do you know what the next webinar is going to be, Margaret? Have you got something in mind?
I don't have any idea right now.
Okay, fair enough. You've earned a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Margaret. All
Okay,
right.
thanks.
We'll see everyone online. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.